Hi, and welcome to Thanks Again Film Podcast, Episode 9 Prometheus. I like Shaw. Sorry. The last podcast was Alien. And I could talk about Alien 2, 3, and 4. Then Alien vs. Predator. And Alien vs. Predator Requiem. And then jump into the latest movies. Prometheus. Prometheus, where the series is right now. And I like Shaw. It is the one series that I'm looking forward to. Story wise. If there's one movie that I want to see in theaters, it's another Prometheus. I think it's super entertaining. It's creative. I don't know. It's something I wasn't expecting. It's the Alien series. And it leans into androids, the creation of life. It's space gardeners. I heard someone say that on a YouTube essay. I'm belching a lot and stuff. I'm trying to clear something. I just ate grilled cheese. I heard it on a YouTube essay. It was on one of those YouTube essays where they're trying to figure out what happens in Prometheus. After the series first premiered, there were a lot of videos trying to understand what the murals were about. So many clues because it got religious. They were like, maybe Jesus is an alien that showed up on Earth to help build the pyramids or something. But those murals were in the room with the black goo. And that stuff was presumed to destroy the Earth. So if they're talking about that, then they're talking about a type of Ragnarok or Revelation. And if that's the case, what the heck do the engineers have anything to do with it? It tied all sorts of stuff. He was playing with I don't know, religion to some extent. But it's not so close to that it's blasphemous. Because you don't understand what the heck that was. Maybe for all people know, that could be more. Maybe Jesus got around to the engineers. And that was that was the holy room of please don't make us use this stuff on folks. Maybe that's what that was. I don't know. It's a great story, though. That's the idea. Um, Space Gardeners. On an essay, I heard that, and it tickled me because it's so creative. Story wise, you know what you could do with that? Space Gardeners. In the realm of sci fi, that's all sorts of trouble. The only other sci fi that gets into that much trouble is probably Doctor Who. And they say Doctor Who is the perfect sci fi, is the best sci fi. Because Doctor Who stories contain every story. He can go anywhere through all time and space at any moment. And he chooses to hug humanity. He hugs Earth. He can go anywhere at any time. I remember when the series came back, he jumped. By episode 2 or 3, he decided, episode 3, I think. It's 1 to 3. Eccleston decides to jump to the last day of Earth and see what everybody's hanging out talking about. But in Prometheus, it's about Earth. It's about who created humanity. What are they up to now? How do we find them? Where are they? I like Shaw. The story starts out with the engineers, though. And it's ambiguous. The story starts out with an engineer, and he's standing on a cliff, and he's muscle bound. It's a strong engineer. They're tall. Not as tall as an IV, I don't think. But they're tall. They're about 8 feet, 7. They're 6. They're 6'4". Anywhere from 6'4" to 7'4", I'd say. They're tall. And he's standing on a cliff holding a little canister that looks like what they use for hair gel, and he's bald. And he opens it up like shoe shine. And the liquid inside, he drinks it. And from there, he starts to decompose. Whatever liquid that was, it broke him down on the cellular level. And he just falls apart as if he's, like old logs in a fire. He just falls apart right there on the cliff. And what's left of him falls into the waterfall. And then you see bits of him flow down the river. And the bits of him turn CGI. And you get closer and closer to what those bits are in their DNA. Suggesting that his DNA is now part of the planet's water system. Which means he is cellular. Part of this engineer is gonna flow on to become something else. you get bits and pieces of DNA in something. It infects that thing and becomes part of it. It's not the same anymore. It's a type of pollution, and they pollute. I guess whatever planet they go to, they pollute it, and it becomes whatever they're gardening. So fast forward, they want more planets that must look like what they look like. But there's no, if you're going to do it that way, where you're rolling the dice and anything, who knows what might pop out. They got humanity. And at some point in the story, I think the idea is that they said humanity wasn't good enough. And they want to send some black canisters. But that's not the next scene. The next scene is Shaw. Shaw finds an artifact. She talks to her dad in a memory. It's another thing that's really creative. Not only space gardeners, but archaeologists in space. They're looking for the past in the future. The series is really creative. And there are details about Shaw. She wears a crucifix around her neck, a cross, which means she's religious. That's a shortcut in a way. That places her, that says to the audience, she's a good guy. From there, they're heading out to space. Prometheus is a fun story. I feel like before I even get into it, there are things that every time I hear people talk about Prometheus, it's the ship at the end. It's all sorts of stuff. The people making bad choices. If you see an alien creature, are you gonna walk up to it and try and hug it and whatnot? If you see, if you land on an alien planet, are you gonna take your helmet off? But the readings say that it's safe. Meaning on first landing, you're gonna take your helmet off on first landing. But the ship says the percentage just went just right. I can overlook that stuff. They were in the moment. Even the thing about the ship, if you're chopping down a tree and it starts to fall in your direction, do you run along the tree line? Probably not. But what if the tree was gigantic? You you just need to run. There's no dodging it. You just need to run out of the way. Running forward will do. You can clear the tree. If it's what if it was people say these things. What if it was a space shuttle? It's not important. Um, it doesn't take long in this story for the crew to head out to space, and they try. It's really interesting. They try what I was complimenting the first Alien movie about was for the characters to sit down together. But it doesn't quite work out. You you don't get to learn. Maybe there's too many. You don't quite see their personalities. Everyone seems grumpy in a way where they don't want to be there. But in this movie, everyone is there because they're valued in some way. There's some sort of technical officer. One person knows geological readings. Another's a mathematician. Someone's an archaeologist. And then there's the whole other side of the story. Is that Weyland Yutani is along for the ride. The maker of robots, Weyland Yutani, has decided to join them in heading out to space to find the origins of humanity. Because Shaw found some cave writings, some pictures on a cave wall told them what part of space to look at. And they're going to go check it out. Character-wise, they have Weyland Yutani, David, the android, and hold on, let me pull it up. Weyland's daughter. How do you spell it? Meredith. Vickers. That's right. Her name's Vickers. She doesn't go by Yutani or Weyland. It's a good movie. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about. Um, in my mind, I'm trying to piece together if I should talk about David. Because David's story looks different if you mention it with Alien Covenant. I haven't thought about it that way. The the importance. Yeah, it makes more sense to mention David in. I'm not going to say too much about David. David's up to no good, though. In this story, there's different categories of folks. There's people looking for answers. And then there's people trying to find the answers on their own. But what it says is that they're all looking for a type of wisdom. There might be a third category of people who just want to stay safe. There are people there might be another category of safety first. And you know what I really like about this story is that there's a moment there's a moment in this story where you're listening and it's sci-fi. The ship's in trouble, this person's in trouble, oh no. That blew up. What are they gonna do? And there's a moment with Idris Elba, who plays Janik. They hardly say each other's names in this movie. But Shaw goes to talk to him. Or he shows up at her quarters and says the ship's in trouble. We can't bring this thing back home. And the movie, I think it saves the entire film. Because real acting shows up. I kid you not. I've seen this movie so many times of where it's focused on acting being sci-fi, and then he shows up in this movie and it's a bit of what the audience is thinking and feeling. Is like, oh, thank goodness there's a real person. And he shows up and he's shaking his head, no, we can't not bring this thing home. And you can see that her acting changes a little bit. I think the scene saves the movie. It saves it for me. It's such a great acting moment that you can see gratitude on her face. I want to talk about this movie. I'm skipping through things, but I don't want to spoil how good this movie is for people. So they head off. They make it to the alien planet. And Weyland Yutani, the maker of robots, is there. Weyland's there, but you don't see him. Who you see is David. And during the hypersleep jump, David's awake, looking after everyone. And there's character moments where David is idolizing himself and learning. And he wants to be as close to Lawrence of Arabia as possible. Peter O'Toole. And that, I don't know if they say it in this movie, but that movie is basically about the question of who am I? And the Englishman rides out to the desert. And the Englishman gets caught up and lost in the war of the desert and becomes one of the tribe. And then he goes back to his people and he looks like it's one of those, am I part of the tribe, or am I this Englishman part of the company? Because out in the desert they say things like my people. I'm trying to remember the actor's name. He says things like, I've sacrificed the wealth all for my people. He could be a rich man, a wealthy man, but he gives it away. It's a good movie. But that's who David wants to be. One of the best scenes in that movie is when Lawrence. He had two squires, basically, two desert boys helping him out, get back to civilization. Whatever happened out in the desert, the tribe folded, and he had two orphans on his hands. And they're marching back, and one of them dies in the sands. It's what do you call it? Those sinking quicksands. One of them dies in quicksand, and his brother makes it out. And it's a real Batman and Robin moment where they're struggling and they're dirty and they're tired. And they march through the desert and they finally make it back to civilization, and they look like it. They look like Die Hard, where they just survived. And he marches, the two of them, they march through the halls and then they sit down at the bar. And he asked for 2 lemonades. And the guy says no. The guy tells him no. This is who David wants to be. And Peter O'Toole gets loud. If I remember, he grabs the man. Or not, or someone comes over and is like, if I order 2 lemonades, I'm getting 2 lemonades. He hands him a water. He didn't want to serve a brown person at the bar. But that's who David is. That's who he's trying to be, and he's combing his hair to perfection to look like it. David is seen as someone who's there to help. And he goes off on a tangent. And it doesn't make sense. So, besides David, there's Shaw's fiance. And nothing against the actor, but that storyline really, I feel, it drags the movie down. I think that storyline has too much romance. They go to they go to the alien planet and it's scatter. Everyone sort of loses their mind. They go off on their own interests. David is seen as a helper. And then that doesn't happen. Her fiance is in the same camp. The story has two people. Again, it's starting to mimic. It mimics the first Alien movie, which makes people happy. David and her fiance are in the camp of Ash. And Vickers is actually in the camp of Ripley. But what's different is that Shaw is the hero of the story, and she's more in the camp of one of the guys who went down. She's a Dallas. I can't believe I can't remember. I need water. She's a Dallas Hurricane. The hero of this story is a Dallas Hurricane. And then there's the faction of I want to go home. The Lamberts. You have Lamberts, Brett, and Parkers in a group. And those people have had enough from the very start. And they're like, nope, it's time to go already. It's a fun movie. So you got people exploring positively until they get bit or something. You've got people exploring negatively which means they're haphazard and they they seem to not mind harming others. And then you have the group that says, nope, time to go home, which is a Ripley. Maybe that a little bit of that energy is why that scene is so great. Because a Ripley shows up. The energy of no. No, no, no. That sort of energy shows up. But what happens is once the crew is awake, they sit down, they talk to each other, they don't all get along, they don't all know each other. It's difficult for the audience to get to know them. But it's supposed to be that way. And then they all set out to go explore a planet seen as the origins of humanity. They're going to find someone. They're going to get a clue or something, and they find an alien spaceship. Now, the crew marches down, and they have a look in their alien hallways. And there's alien air to breathe. And there's condensation. It's like they went to Iceland or something. And they walk through the ship. And then a hollow message starts playing. Holy cow, they've got TV. It has to be safe. But guess what? That's the complete opposite of what happens. I'm glad I don't have to tell this story in order. Because what they find is a fire alarm. They go to find the origins of humanity, and they see a fire alarm of engineers running for their life. That has to be some kind of red flag. But they keep looking, and it's at the point where they forget themselves. They get split up. They get split apart. Not everyone makes it back to the ship. They get lost. And then after that, people start to die. And I don't feel like going over it. Because it's not an alien movie like the first alien movie, where there's a creature that jumps out of someone and then just attacks everyone. That doesn't happen in this movie. It doesn't happen. This is an alien movie, and there's no alien, and it's really refreshing. But there is. What happens is there's 3 camps. In the camp of, I'm going to fool around with this stuff and figure out what has happened, what's going on with it, what's happening. injures everyone. I don't know what this does, but why don't you eat it? Let's see what it does. This can't be good. This stuff is weird. I'm gonna give it to my wife. I'm on the alien planet. I don't feel well. Let me get as close to my wife as possible. Let me infect everyone on the ship. It doesn't add up. But it's entertaining. And it's sad too, because David's the one who's supposed to be looking after everyone. He combs his hair to precision. He's supposed to be looking after everyone. And he gets into, what the heck does this do? Isn't that a curious science? I'm supposed to learn everything and then report back. So again, the company took priority. So what happens is that sad moment where Shaw gets infected. And Shaw wears a cross. Shaw is the main character. Poor Shaw. She is sincere. Her dad was an archaeologist. She's Jiro dreams of sushi. She's an archaeologist. Her dad was an archaeologist. She's been doing this her whole life. At the dig site, looking for clues. And she finds the biggest one of all is, where are people from? Not some dinosaur or pot that got stuck in the ground. And she goes there and her boyfriend gets her sick. I think that's where all the hate comes from. That character. That character. So he's just haphazard. Literally. His eye isn't okay. He's got stuff leaking out of his face. On the alien planet. And then he goes and curls up next to Shaw. Out of his mind. And then the fun part of the movie happens. Where where they start to get answers. They uncover a space jockey. Which is actually an engineer. They uncover that thing from Alien 1 that's looking over the rookery. And it's a bit of a celebration. But Shaw isn't well. It's the scene where I'm skipping ahead because that's what's interesting. There's a moment where Shaw, that thing, an alien, the chest burster you expect, starts growing. And she runs to the medical tube to get it taken out. And instead of the chest burster, it's a living squid. And it's gigantic. And then the medical machine staples her up. And she does her best to run for her life. And it's one of the most badass moments because who gets up and runs after surgery? I've had surgery before on the abdomen, and I was out for days. I could barely move. They say you have to get from one bed to the other, and it took everything. And I was out like a light. But Shaw, she got an injection of something to help with the pain, and she hopped up and kept running. That's what people talk about when they talk about this. Um, yeah, there's basically two more scenes after this. It doesn't play out like any of the other Alien movies. It's really creative. There's so far after this, there's a scene where they confront the engineer. That's important. And there's a scene where the engineer fights for his life. And that is the best bit of sci-fi that I've probably ever seen. Is some of the best sci-fi because it looks like a beautiful nightmare. I don't know how he pulled it off. I don't know how they pulled it off, but the scene turns into dreamland. And it looks like a nightmare. And it's neat. It's not scary. You have to see it to believe it. It's really good. They put a monster in the movie and they put it against the antagonist. Isn't that creative? So the main scene, Wayland gets woken up. So it's Wayland, David, Vickers on one team. Those three. They're the company. The Ripleys are on the ship. The Ripleys are on the ship and they want to leave. And the company people have kidnapped Shaw, who is holding her gut together. She's holding her side. And she wants to leave. She doesn't want any more answers. They ripped out a squid. She's like, it's time to go home. Is this? They can figure it out later. And they figure out the space jockey. Something else that's really creative is that their technology is so far into the future that it's controlled by sound, by flute. Can you imagine if every time that you wanted to turn something on or open the door, you had to play a song on the flute? Toodaloo, and then your car starts. It's really neat. But what happens after? Wayland, he's old. He has to be around 90 or older. And he's standing there pointing a finger at this engineer that just woke up. And from the perspective of the engineer, it's, I have to get out of here. One of the canisters spilled. That's where the engineer is. The engineer's in the middle of a fire alarm. And he goes to sleep, hoping that help would arrive, clean up the mess, and then wake him up. And then he'd apologize or something. That didn't happen. He woke up and he's staring at Wayland Yutani, demanding answers about, tell me about where humanity's from. And he looks at Wayland and he's like, we're supposed to destroy you. How dare you even point your finger or talk to me? And then he looks left and he sees David. And Dave, who knows what he thinks about David? I bet he hates David. I think the idea is that the gardeners, the engineers, they value life. They don't, it's a type of, they prefer life. And he's looking at Wayland Yutani, who's bringing dead things to life, to walk and talk. He probably looks down at him as this confused old man. He's like, what are you doing making this evil little puppet come to life? That thing is not alive. And it's walking and talking. So he rips the head off of David. And he beats Wayland to death with it. It's odd. You don't understand where the engineers are coming from exactly. But the whole time when these two groups are trying to understand each other, Shaw is up to the side throwing softballs. She's sabotaging the whole thing off from the side, giving the answers that the engineer wants. And that's Prometheus. From there, everyone runs for their life. It's a great movie. But what does it mean? I'm going to turn to my notes again on this one. I think that went well last time. I know what it means. I think because what happens in the story are there's groups. One group is looking for answers sincerely, which is Shaw. And then there's another group who is wide-eyed and they're playing with things and harming everyone. Huh. And then there's the folks who just want to go home. Uh-oh. I didn't write that much on Prometheus. Okay, I'm going to do my best. These are on the channel, so I don't know. Characters in this story begin to play with the creation tools instead of seeking guidance about them. Everything falls apart. Everyone is looking for wisdom. I think what Prometheus is trying to say is, learn your craft so there isn't chaos. It happens with the engineers. And then it happens with the people that show up to the very same site. Learn your craft so there isn't chaos. It's a really mature message. Prometheus is great. I like Shaw. I think as far as characters go, you have Ripley, and she's part of Broforce of all those action movies. And creating new characters like that isn't easy. And I think they managed it with Shaw. And I wish the series had more Shaw, because she's memorable. And she's got her own theme song too, and it's really neat. It's played on flute. And the story ends with her not going home, but she steals another alien ship. She puts David's broken robot head in a bag, and she jumps to to fly off and look for more engineers. It's Jiro dreams of sushi, and she keeps going to figure out where people come from instead of throwing in the towel. It's such a great character idea. This as much everyone dies as tough as this story is on the characters. Shaw is still going to run the marathon. And it's so admirable. It's neat. So that's it. That's Prometheus. I'm a fan. There's Alien Covenant after this. And that one's on the channel too. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for Thanks for listening. Okay, be well, everyone.